I am going to talk to you today about Asa Fitch Jr. I'm Judy Flagg. I'm the town historian for Salem, and we didn't have a reenactor to do Asa, so I would just like to tell you some of the important things that he did and why he has this large, handsome obelisk here in this cemetery. He was born in Salem of Asa Fitch Sr. No, he wasn't. He was born in Massachusetts in 1809. The family came here and established a large estate at what is known now as Fitch's Point, which is just to the southwest of the village of Salem. There is a historic marker there on Route 29, which you will see. It talks about his life as an entomologist for New York State. When the Fitches first came here, they had several children. The oldest son was Martin Fitch, and he was educated at Middlebury College. He was a very bright young man, and he brought much honor to the family. But shortly after his graduation at Middlebury, he died. We don't know what it was he died of, but he died very early. At that point, his father decided that he wasn't educating any more of his children. That's it. He'd spent all this money educating Martin, and he had died. So the next son, Asa, was not supposed to be going on to school. He was going to be a farmer and live on the land and live at the estate and raise sheep and other crops. But when he became 12 years old, he became very sickly. He caught a disease. I don't know what it was. We just don't know at the time what it would have been. But they thought he was going to die. For a week, it was touch and go, and they didn't know if he was going to live from one day to the next. At the end of that time, he was left very weak and feeble and was bedridden for a long period of time. At that time, he took up the hobby of collecting bugs. Insects and flowers really interested him, and he took copious notes in personal diaries. He would draw pictures of the insects, he'd draw pictures of the flowers, and write his observations, study about them in books, and it became a lifelong passion for him. His father decided, because he was so weak, that he couldn't carry on as a farmer. So he decided, okay, we'll send him on to college. So they sent him to Rensselaer School, which is now RPI, and he graduated from there in 1838. At that time, too, he also went on to become a doctor like his father. He went to Rutgers University in New York City and became a physician. After his graduation from Rutgers, he settled in the area of Stillwater, New York, to take up practice there. And he also met a young lady by the name of Elizabeth McNeil, who would become his wife. And at that time, they moved their family to Fort Miller, and he became a physician at the Fort Miller area for several years. At the end of the 1830s, his father became very ill, and he could no longer maintain the estate here at Fitch's Point. At that point, Asa Jr. came back to Salem and took over the estate here at Fitch's Point and became a farmer and helped out his father and his family until his father's death. And then Asa continued to stay there, again, collecting all kinds of insects, cataloging, writing copious notes about the insects he collected. And he traveled the entire area of Washington County. And in so doing, when he would go to these other areas, he would talk to the individuals there about their lives, about their ancestors' lives, about the countries that they came from. And he would write all of these notes longhand and keep all of these studies about the families, also about their reminiscences of the Revolutionary War, just prior to the war and after the war. He took thousands and thousands of notes. His idea was to one day put this all into a history of Washington County. Unfortunately, he died before that ever happened, but we did still have his notes. Then in 1854, his hobby became his vocation, because he was named the first New York State entomologist. That was a position that was never created before in New York State. He was the very first one, and he held that position for 17 years. And in that position, and with all of the notes and the studies that he had done, he gained worldwide fame. Accolades were laid upon him in England and in France. He really was a worldwide important figure. He was also the first president of the Cemetery Association when Evergreen Cemetery was being created, and when the concept came to them that the burying ground that we were in this morning was filled. They needed a new place to lay their dead. And this area was bought, these acres were bought, and he was the one who was instrumental in getting J.C. Sidney, who was a landscape designer out of Philadelphia, who came and laid out the roadways, the grounds. There were actually 2 ponds at that time. There was one over behind the superintendent's house, which is still there, and there was another one down in this low area behind us. That one has since been filled in. But that was an important mission that he had. And the Cemetery Association carried on until his death. He still was the president, and that was in 1879. So he lived to be age 70. And later on in the 1800s, the community was so taken with his importance and how much of a figure he was in the area, they took up a collection and raised a lot of money in those days and had this monument created with his likeness here at the obelisk. And also, all of these stones were bought at the same time. They're all identical stones for all of the Fitch family members. So this is the whole Fitch family plot. And that's it. Thank you.